I got to admit, I missed the old 30-second intro. 10 seconds is not long enough. I'm Brock Seguin. We got Zach Laing with us here today. As always, it is the DFO DFS Hockey Report. We got a 3-game slate on our hands this Wednesday evening. I hope everyone's having a fine Wednesday afternoon. Not all slates are created equally. As far as 3-game slates are concerned, I think this one is kind of middle of the pack, would you say? I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's great. How you feeling today, Zach?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's kind of an interesting slate. A couple of really interesting games, to say the least. You got a couple of goaltenders making their first start. Well, one goaltender making his first start of the season. Some guy named Colton Ellis. We should check and see if he's related to Steven, starting for the Sabres. So pretty interesting games here tonight. I kind of like this little 3-gamer.
Speaking of Colton Ellis and Nico Dawes, let's get right into it as I forgot the screen share again. Oh my God, 2 days in a row. Unreal behavior. Here we go. That is like the first 2 times I think I've ever done that. And to do it on back-to-back days is just absolutely wild. All right, we've got a 3-gamer on our hands today. Subscribe, join the Discord, as Nick and says. That is absolutely true. You should definitely be doing that. The one thing that I want to do before we get started, though, Fridays are days where we say, hey, if you drop a comment in the comment section of the video on YouTube, we enter you to win a $25 gift card to Nation Gear. We forgot to do it on Friday, forgot to do it on Monday, so we did it on Tuesday. At least we were taking all the comments from yesterday and throwing them into a draw. For some reason, the draw. Oh, wait. We got it. All right, Zach, why don't you break down today's starting goalies while I get the draw ready?
Perfect. We've got Philip Gustafsson starting in net for the Minnesota Wild as they pay visit to the New Jersey Devils, going up against Nico Dawes. John Gibson gets the start as the Detroit Red Wings head out briefly east, to visit the Buffalo Sabres, squaring off against Colton Ellis. First NHL start for him. Third and final game of the night, Jakub Dobish gets the start for the Montreal Canadiens, visiting the Calgary Flames. Brock, what a treat it is to have all 6 starting goaltenders confirmed to start at 2:30 Eastern time in the afternoon.
Yeah, you're telling me. Absolutely great day at Daily Faceoff when that happens. Appreciate the coaches get us an info quickly. But before we get into tonight's slate, let's get to our draw tonight. We've got our random, as Zach fixes his microphone, we've got our random wheel picker tonight. So here we go. Winner of our $25 Nation giveaway. We'll do it again this Friday as well. All you got to do is drop a comment in the live chat during Friday's show. And a Complex Kid wins our $25 gift card giveaway today. Congratulations to a Complex Kid. If you're watching today, please reach out, Twitter, or join the DFO DFS Discord. If you're not already in there, let us know. We'll get you the gift card. Congratulations. Let's get into tonight's 3-game slate. Zach, I sort of fixed the Edmonton Oilers yesterday by breaking down that game, so I'm going to let you break down the Detroit Red Wings. Not that they need fixing, but maybe our DFS game needs a little bit of fixing. Speaking of which, if you have been with the show for a long time, you know the charts look a little bit different this year than they did last year. I'm not using the actual Wowie statistics this year, just because it's very time consuming. But on a 3-game slate today, and my cold streak that I've got going on in DFS right now, I figured let's get back to our roots. Let's get back to the Wowie. So everything you see today will be Wowie stats. So we'll start with the first game. We've got the Minnesota Wild paying a visit to the New Jersey Devils. The Devils in the second half of back-to-back, so Nico Dawes gets the start. It's going to be Philip Gustafsson for the Wild. 2.8 implied total is the lowest on the slate for the Minnesota Wild. Pretty much 3 toss-up games, which is why I think this slate's pretty interesting. All 3 of these games feel like they could go either way. Minnesota won grades as the number 1 line and target, and that is good and bad at the same time. Like, yes, I do think that Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, and Matt Boldy together is good news. The problem, this team just is not scoring goals this year. In terms of like just 5v5 expected goals for per 60, they are second worst in the league. The only thing that's really carrying them this season, and the reason that they've gotten any success at all, is because of the power play. The issue is tonight they run up against the number 1 power penalty kill in the league through the first 2 weeks of the season. So I'm in on Minnesota. Like the 5v5 metrics are really good for this line. Not surprising the rest of the team sucks when they put all three of their best players together. But like this top line plays a lot. They've got good metrics. Matchup wise, it is pretty good tonight. So it's not surprising that they rank number one. At 15% ownership, I think that's palpable on a 3-game slate. So I'm going to get there at 22%, or at 22,000. I don't know if I'm going to be over the field. Like, I just genuinely don't think this offense is very good. And then running into a New Jersey team that, while Minnesota can't score at 5v5, the Devils have been one of the best defensive teams in the league this year. They're top 10 in terms of 5v5 expected goals against. And as I mentioned, the penalty kill is as good as it gets. So I do have concerns here about the Wild a little bit. I basically will only, I think, target this top line for the most part. Tarasenko, if you want to get some power play exposure. Rossi's back on that second line. But it's really for this top line or bust for me from a Minnesota standpoint. Zach, how do you feel about the Wild tonight?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you, man. Like, I don't see any reason to get down to any of these depth pieces on the Wild. They've consolidated this offense, and that's a really nice thing for us DFS players. And the streets seem to agree with it, right? 15% ownership coming in on Minnesota 1, just 5% ownership coming in on the second and third lines. If you're playing huge field, maybe I'd be okay taking a little bit of a stab on a mini stack on Minnesota 3, just because of Ryan Hartman there. $4,100. He's got a solid individual projection, just tons of shot volume from him. I mean, beyond the big three, he's the guy who is shooting the puck for this Minnesota team. 11.9 shots on goal per hour of ice time so far for him this season. So I think beyond, a Hartman, maybe Foligno mini stack, or a Vinny Hinney there as well, if you're looking to get really cheap, I'm not really playing the rest of this Wild forward group.
As for the Minnesota Wild, I mentioned yesterday, this top line is playing extremely well. One that I've got some interest in. Jack Hughes goes off, scores a Hattie. Nobody picked him. A little surprising. Obviously, fairly difficult matchup against Anthony Stolarz. But the Leafs really struggling defensively so far this season. So that's kind of why I was interested in Hughes and Pratt. They've really been starting to catch fire. The price is up. I think you can pretty safely leave Andre Palat off that stack and just go with the mini or get some power play correlation on the blue line. The second line's had a really good year as well. Matchup wise, it's not good for either side. The Minnesota Wild do grade out pretty well defensively. A lot of this data is from last year, though. When you take a look at them as a whole this season, they're kind of middle of the pack defensively. So they're not, they haven't been amazing. Actually, they're towards the bottom third of the league in terms of expected goals against per 60 at 5v5. And then the power play or penalty kills 24th. So I think the Devils are maybe in a little bit of a better spot here than the chart suggests. And I'm certainly interested. Like, I'm definitely going to get to Hughes and Brad playing. I'm definitely going to get to the second line again as well. Take a look at the metrics here. Really good for both these top two lines. Even though the defensive metrics on the Wild suggest that they're really good defensively, that hasn't necessarily been the case so far this season. So I have no issues getting to the Wild. I'm going to pull up their lines here, bring up their power plays, because they've been shuffling that around a little bit. So you've got a combination of this first and second line together. I mentioned Dawson Mercer, he's been on, had a really nice start to the year. I do have some concerns about just whether or not he can continue that. Like, the early season start seems pretty noisy, but at $4,500, I think you can kind of take a chance on that. I just want to pull up the stats for this team this year. So he is 12 shots on goal, 3 goals, shooting 25%. So, it's hard to really trust that, but $4,500 on a smaller slate, I don't mind. That second line, Arseny Griciuk, I think, is a player that I kind of always consider. I don't want a full stack New Jersey 3, but I think as his playing time increases, I think he's kind of a really interesting one-off value option at $3,400. Super talented young player. Only sees about 13, 14 minutes a night. But similar to Max Shabanoff last night with the Islanders, I had no problem clicking on him. Obviously, the matchup was a lot better, but just young, talented, not seeing a lot of ice time, but he paid off pretty quickly last night. So I'm interested in the Devils. How about you?
Yeah, I've got interest in the Devils here. It's kind of interesting when you look at the ownership here. New Jersey 2 coming in 15.6% ownership. They're the third highest owned line on the slate. New Jersey 1 coming in with 12.2%. They are the 10th highest owned line on this slate tonight. There's not a lot of people getting to this line for whatever reason. I mean, I guess I can understand, the matchup is rough, right? 4.3 matchup score is pretty abysmal. But this game has a high pace to it. And this is a Devils team who we really know can drive play extremely well. And offensively, like the Devils' top line has been tremendous, 34.4 scoring chances, 4 per hour so far this season. Really strong underlying metrics for this line. So I have no issue getting to the field here at 12%, 15% on New Jersey one. It just feels like a really nice spot. Jack Hughes hasn't had much success against the Wild in his career, just 3 assists in 5 games played. Jesper Bratt, on the other hand, 4 goals and 14 points in 12 games played. So I have no issue here getting to this top line. I think I'll get to this second line a little bit as well. It just feels like we're kind of really waiting for them to kind of really turn it on here this season. So, the one thing that's really nice about this second line, really great floor, right? Timo Meier, shot god. This is a guy who's been firing pucks on net a lot for a long time here. Dawson Mercer doing a really good job getting some volume as well. And Nico Hischier, I would like to see him shooting the puck a little bit more here. But he does have 5 goals and 10 points in 11 games played against the Wild in his career. So I don't really have any interest getting to this Devils side. For me, I'll probably be sprinkling in a little bit of this Minnesota side as well here, just especially with it being a 3-game slate. But it does feel a little tough. And I mean, those salaries, they are pretty high on that Devils top line, or that Wild top line.
Yeah, I based on the DFO implied total, I guess not really DFO, but my implied totals for tonight's game, New Jersey's the highest on the entire slate, Minnesota's the lowest. So I think I'm definitely going to be over the field on New Jersey and a little bit lower on the Wild, but I'll certainly be sprinkling in that Minnesota top line. Let's get to game number 2, the Detroit Red Wings and the Buffalo Sabres. Before we get there, Sniperowski says, how about that Stars game last night? Yeah, it didn't go the way we anticipated it to. In fairness, the expected goals according to Sports Logic in that game were 3.8 for Columbus and 3.6 for the Stars. So Elvis Merzlikins continues to show out for the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's been outstanding. I forgot we said pre-show we're going to kind of break them down together today. So I'll take it away here. The toss-up game here in Detroit. And when you take a look at the line stacks this evening, we've got Detroit 1 coming in at number 5, Buffalo 1 coming in at number 3, both seeing modest ownership at about 15%. The ownership is very spread out, which I think makes sense, right? You don't have anybody that's like an overwhelming favorite tonight. Every game feels like a toss-up. Every game seems pretty tight, and the ownership is basically evenly spread out among the top 2 lines for like every single team. Groovy Kid 92 says, how's it going, gents? Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Let's start with the Detroit Red Wings side of things here. Obviously this team is just rolling right now. Still will be without Patrick Kane this evening. I will say, I think that they've probably been a little bit better than the metrics suggest. Whether or not that's something that can continue, remains to be seen. I think the one thing that's needs to be said about Detroit is just how good the penalty kill has been. It's been so much improved over last year. Number 7 on the NHL currently. So tough matchup there. The worst matchup on the night for the power play is the Buffalo Sabres, but their power play has been solid. So we'll see how things go there. The Detroit been just extremely, extremely disciplined as well, though. So not a lot of opportunities for the Sabres tonight. Meanwhile, without Patrick Kane, the Red Wings power play looks a little bit different tonight. They are going to move Marco Kasper to that top power play unit. So you've got a little bit of the top line, a little bit of the second line up there with Moritz Seider. Second unit looks similar to how it has recently. On the Buffalo Sabres side of things, I think there's a lot to like. If they're able to get to the Detroit Red Wings tonight, Zach Benson been on a heater since rejoining the lineup. Josh Doan still playing very well at $3,900. And then I got to pull up the numbers here. You might have them in front of you. You're usually quicker to the trigger on this one. What are Tage Thompson's career numbers against the Red Wings, and why are they unbelievable?
Yeah, extremely well. It's funny, as we're going through the show here, I got Discord notifications popping up of people talking about Tage Thompson going up against the Detroit Red Wings. 19 games played in his career, 12 goals and 23 points. Last year, of course, he had the 3-goal, 3-assist game against the Red Wings that completely nuked that slate. So he's been absolutely tremendous going up against the Red Wings in his career. And, we talk about Zach Benson's heater to start the season here. Still hasn't scored a goal, but he's got 3 goals and 7 points in 6 games played against the Red Wings. So I really like the look of this top line here for the Sabres.
Yeah, and a lot of this is those numbers seem outrageous, but then you've got 4 goals in 4 games last year. A couple years ago, 2 goals in 4 games, 5 points. 3 years ago, 4 goals, 9 points. Like all these are in the last 3 years. Just absolutely nuking the Red Wings. That's Tage Thompson. So Yuri Kulik, I mentioned him the other day, just a really good young player with a great shot that's been around it. The expected goal numbers are high for him. I think this top line's in a great spot tonight. I think they're pretty low owned. I think that in terms of game environments tonight, this is the one that feels the best to me. I could see that New Jersey Minnesota game being a little bit clunkier, a little bit lower scoring, perhaps, especially with the Devils on a back-to-back and Minnesota just not generating much. And then you've got Calgary and Montreal. I mean, Calgary can't generate much of anything at all at 5v5. And in order to win hockey games right now, they need to kind of slow the game down a little bit as well, and make it a little bit tighter checking and low scoring. So I think this, to me, feels like the best game environment. And Detroit 1, Detroit 2, Buffalo 1, Buffalo 2. Those are 4 lines that I think I'm going to be heavy on tonight over the field and maybe under the field on the other 2 games. How do you feel about the game environment here?
Yeah, I like this one quite a bit. Even when you look at the goaltending ownership tonight, John Gibson and Colton Ellis ranking 4th and 5th in terms of projected ownership on this slate tonight. So what does that tell me? It tells me that the public really doesn't like the goaltenders here, which I think is a good sign too of this being a high scoring a game that has the potential for a high scoring environment. We talk about the Buffalo side and Buffalo 1 having success, with guys like Zach Benson and Tage Thompson. This Detroit 1 line, Lucas Raymond returned on Sunday against the Edmonton Oilers, had a really good game. Him and Dylan Larkin have really beat up on the Sabres in their careers as well. 34 games played for Larkin, 19 goals and 34 points. Lucas Raymond, 16 games played, 7 goals and 22 points. So I really like the look of this game here. I think it's a pretty interesting game stack environment as well here, because I haven't played around with it yet, but I think you could probably fit Detroit 1 and Buffalo 1 together in a lineup, which is a good thing because they're not projected to play a ton of ice time going up against each other. So that means more often than not, you're going to have opportunities for both of these lines to score when they are on the ice. So that's certainly a route that I'm going to be going here in this game. Not a ton of ownership coming in terms of full stacks for these lines, but Dylan Larkin projecting for like 19% ownership. What's really interesting is Lucas Raymond only projecting for 5% right now. So I have no issue getting to this Detroit 1 side here tonight. I really like this spot for them. Detroit 2, it's been pretty rough to start the year for them. They really haven't found a way to kind of get going. Marco Kasper, still waiting on him to kind of find his legs and break out this season, as I am hoping that he does, because I got quite a bit of stocks in him in terms of best puck this year. But I don't mind the idea of a little Alex DeBrincat here. 6 goals, 15 points in 19 games played. He's the one who's got some really good shot volume, 11.2 shots on goal per hour this season. That leads all Detroit Red Wings or so far this season. So I don't mind the idea of attacking this Detroit side here too.
Yeah, you can pretty easily fit the 2 top lines together, and I do think that's a nice game stack option. Detroit, too, the thing with them, like they're obviously just a way better line with Patrick Kane. I don't think that needs to really be said. Kind of like the awesome sauce that they've got going on is just the fact that it seems like Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane just share a brain. The chemistry there is just off the charts, and like that's really where a lot of the high quality looks come from for that line. So without Kane, I don't like him quite as much. But the fact that Casper's going up to that top line tonight, or that top power play unit, and to bring it there, I do certainly have interest. Lucas Raymond's own percentage makes no sense. And then Emmett Finney, man, a player that we were kind of like overlooking early in the season from a DFS standpoint, just because he was only playing like 13, 14 minutes. He's up around 18 minutes a game tonight. We've got him projected for 17.7, one of the best value forwards on the slate. Finally, broke through over the weekend, and hopefully that opens the floodgates for him. Just a tremendous young skater, young player. Hopefully he can keep things rolling. But if you take a look here, him and DeBrincat raking out as 2 of the best value options in the slate. Same with Lucas Raymond. I mean, in the top 15 and seeing just 5% ownership. Really, really interested in this game as a whole. Do you have interest? Like, I'm assuming you're going to get to Josh Doan and company on that second line as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Dona's been great to start the season here. Still really cheap at $3,900. Projecting for 22% ownership here tonight, which is quite a bit. I don't know if I'll necessarily get that high here on this slate tonight, but his shot volume has been tremendous so far. 13.4 shots on goal per hour of ice time so far this season. I like this game environment as a whole here. Buffalo 2 may not have the strongest matchup here in this spot here tonight, but the line stats have been okay. They're finding ways to score goals, which is good to see. In a game like this where we're expecting goals to be scored, that's obviously a good sign for them. I don't think I'm going to get up to that 12-13% for Buffalo 2 here tonight, but I like the pieces, especially Josh Doan having exposure on that top power play unit. Not that there's a great power play matchup here for the Buffalo Sabres by any means, ranking 6th overall on this slate. But opportunity is everything. So for a guy who's running hot, I don't mind that idea of getting to him tonight too.
Speaking of game environment, in terms of 5v5 expected goals against per 60 per Sports Logic, Buffalo 4th worst in the league. Detroit would be 10th worst in the league. So by far, kind of like the two worst defenses going head to head tonight of any game. So definitely an opportunity for this game to open up a little bit. Let's get to the final game of the night, the Calgary Flames and the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens enter Calgary as -119. Road favorites against a Flames team. What are they? 1-5, 1-6. They've only got one win of the season, correct? Am I wrong?
Yeah. And it was against the Oilers in the season opener.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they've lost 6 straight since 1-6 on the season. Yeah, and that was even a fluky one. They could be winless on the season right now. Let's take a look at the line stacks for this game. This is where going back to Wowies feels a little weird because, again, it's a lot of data from last year, and the data from last year is a lot better than the data from this year for the Calgary Flames. In terms of team expected goals for per 60, they are the 4th worst team in the NHL at 5v5. They've just been downright brutal. That being said, they've been a little bit better the last 2 games. I don't know if that it seems to be correlating perfectly with the return of Jonathan Huberdeau. That top lines looks better. They're projected for a ton of ownership tonight. I think most of it has to do with the fact that they are just 15,200 to full stack. I think that is definitely appealing. You've also got the second line, which we are very fond of playing, at least have been in the past, at just $12,600. That's got to be the cheapest they've been in a long time, especially with Matt Coronado there. He provides as much offense as anybody on this team. So Calgary 1 and Calgary 2, as gross as it feels and as bad as they have been this year, I think you got to at least consider them. The matchups are fantastic. The underlying metrics are pretty good, not great. You see here, they're generating a lot. They're just not really finishing as much. Calgary 2 is the one kind of, exception there. But yeah, I don't know. I want to play them. I am so ready for it to go very poorly. And Montreal really hasn't been that bad defensively, kind of middle of the pack in terms of 5v5 and power and penalty kill together. So Jakub Dobeš has been unreal this year. I don't know, man. What are your thoughts? I feel like we need to play them, but I don't want to. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't really want to play Calgary 1 either. The ownership kind of scares me. Considering how good, Dobeš has been this year. Obviously, Montreal has not been a great defensive team this season. What's interesting is when you look at the matchups here, especially for Calgary 1, they're projected to see 35% of their ice time going up against Montreal's 4th line, which is the best defensive line for the Habs so far this season. I don't know how much. I don't know. It's weird because when you look at that, it kind of scares me a little bit, right? And granted, they are going to see 29% going up against Montreal 1, 26% against Montreal 2, which have certainly been the weaker, defensive lines here for the Habs this season. I think for that reason, I'm probably off of Calgary 1 at the ownership that they're seeing. I'm fine getting to a little bit of Kadri and a little bit of Huberdeau here because I do think that it's an okay spot overall. Kadri hasn't had a ton of success against Montreal. He's played a lot against them in his career. 42 games played, 11 goals, and just 24 points. Huberdeau, a little bit more success overall, 8 goals, 32 points in 36 games played. I guess in one sense of the term, I can understand why the public's kind of getting there, just because, Montreal has had some issues, this season, especially on the penalty kill. They've been giving up, quite a few goals against per hour there. But, for me, like, I'm kind of comfortable fading this Calgary one line and getting to this second line instead. And the reason for that for me is, like, Blake Coleman is giving good shot volume, 8.9 shots on goal per hour. That leads all Calgary Flames players. And that's kind of saying something, because that's not a ton of volume. Like, that's kind of around an average amount that you would see. But again, Matt Coronado down there, like, he's had success in the past offensively. 3 games played, 2 goals going up against the Habs. I like the idea of kind of fading this Calgary one chalk and getting a little bit more ownership here on this second line. That's kind of the way that I look at this one here. And it's interesting too, because for Calgary one, seeing as much ownership as they are at 18.2%, the second highest owned line on the slate, Jakub Dobeš is seeing a lot of ownership. He's the highest owned goaltender at 23%. I think when you kind of factor those things in, that's another reason why I'm kind of comfortable getting off of some of this Calgary one chalk.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's bizarre. I think a lot of this goaltending ownership is a little bizarre tonight. And when you compare it with the stacks, it feels like just nobody knows who to play. I feel like I almost want to just be over the field on Dobeš and fade the Flames. Like, I will say, it's the smallest sample size, but in the 2 games since Huberdeau came back, the top line is controlling 75% of the shot attempts. They have generated 48.6 scoring chances, 4 per 60, and 17 high danger looks. So they've been unreal since Huberdeau has been back. So I don't want to completely write them off on a 3-game slate. If this was a bigger slate, I would just say screw it. But on a 3-game slate, I think I'm going to find a way to get there. Same with Calgary, too, to some degree. Montreal 1, they are what? They are the highest owned line on the slate, correct? Yes,
Yeah.
they are. Okay. Yeah, makes sense, right? They've been really good. There's not really a whole lot else to consider on their own roster. In terms of 5v5 expected goals for per 60, Montreal is middle of the pack. And again, the Flames have been, not the typical selves. They're bottom 10 in terms of expected goals against per 60 at 5v5. So Justin Wolf coming off of maybe his best performance of the season. So maybe that's a sign of things to come for him. But overall, I just still think this Flames team is kind of underwater a bit. And I am perfectly comfortable getting to Montreal 1 tonight. I think that they're in a good spot. Highest owned line of the slate. I don't think they'll be the highest owned line for me. I don't know if I'll quite get there. I much prefer the Detroit and Buffalo side of things in this game, even New Jersey perhaps a little bit up there with Montreal. So, yeah, they're in a good spot. I'm going to play them. Am I going to get to 20%? We'll kind of see. I just want to take a look at the individual projections here for Montreal in terms of value. Gallagher, Suzuki. So Suzuki grades out really well, and then that's kind of it. Surprising. In terms of raw projection, Caulfield's got to be up there, right? Yeah, okay. Interesting game. You're kind of the one that usually ends up getting to Montreal 3. Are you going to get there at all tonight? They grade out quite nicely at $8,300. I mean, Anderson, Evans, Gallagher, basically min price, and when together have been successful.
Yeah, super, super valuable dirt cheap stack here tonight for Montreal 3, grading out 9th best overall in the slate, seeing only 8% ownership here tonight. I think if you're, game stacking that Detroit Buffalo game, I think sprinkling in a little bit of this Calgary or this Montreal 3 line rather is a totally viable option here tonight. Not going to go crazy or anything like that, but I've liked to look at this line in the past. Brendan Gallagher, 3 points per hour, all assists so far to start the season here. I don't mind the idea of getting down there. I don't think I'm going to go too crazy or anything like that, but I don't mind the spot. One thing that's kind of interesting too, and I think somebody that's kind of really getting overlooked in this game is Zach Bolduc. He has been great to start the season here. For Montreal, since he was acquired this offseason, he's got the third highest raw projection of the Montreal forwards. He grades out as the top value play. He's projected for just 5% ownership tonight. Obviously, playing the fourth line at 5-on-5 maybe isn't the most ideal situation for him. But man, he is finding ways to be super productive so far to start the season here. So I think he's an interesting kind of punt play. And 3 games played against the Flames in his career, he's got 2 goals going up against them. So, with how hot he's been to start the season, I think that's a really interesting guy to play to get different. And on that note, too, Calgary's penalty kill has been abysmal to start the season, like absolutely terrible. Montreal grading out with a middle ranked power play, compared to the rest of the league here, but they come in with the best power play matchup on this slate here, going up against a Calgary team fairly undisciplined, finding themselves shorthanded 3.1 times per game. So I don't mind the idea of mixing in some Zach Bolduc if you're playing some Montreal 1, or the other option too is you can go with like a Lane Hudson mini stack with Bolduc and somebody from Montreal 1 as well. So I think there's some interesting ways to kind of attack this game here, and I think trying to get to some Bolduc is a really interesting option, just considering how low ownership he is, and he does play a decent amount with Hudson at 5-on-5. Not they've had a whole lot of success there this season, but just another little layer of correlation there that definitely doesn't hurt.
Yeah, still great now is one of the best value options on the slate at $4,100, even with a projection of just 14 minutes. Evans went absolutely nuclear out of nowhere last game. Yeah, he had 8 shots on goal. He has 10 shots on goal for the season. 8 of them in one game. Yeah, I think that line's pretty good. They've really good success together in the past. Evans 2,700, Gallagher great now as a strong value option. You can take it or leave it with Josh Anderson. Okay, let's get to some of the defensemen and goalies tonight. I think it's kind of like every defenseman seems like they're 5K this evening. Axel Sandin-Pellikka still great now as a really good value option, although he's up to $4,300. He's starting to put it together. I told you it was only a matter of time before he started to get going. Zeev Buium, his price just does not change. He's just 4K forever and always. I think he got up to 4,100, then he went down to 3,900, and now he's 4K again. That's as big of an increase as you're getting for him. Again, I don't love relying almost solely on the Minnesota power play, but if you're playing Minnesota, you basically have to play Zeev Buium. It's pretty wild to see as much ownership coming in on Minnesota, but then just 6% ownership on Buium makes no sense. Who else? Brett Pesci's been on a bit of a heater lately. Boy, paying down for defenseman tonight feels gross. I'm still going to rely on my guy Zane Parekh, although he only played 14 minutes. I'm going to get back there at $3,400. If I'm playing the Flames, I don't really like them tonight, but if I'm playing them, I'll get to some Zane, especially if I'm playing Calgary too. Correlates with them a little bit on that power play unit. The other Calgary defenseman, Weegar and Anderson both project very, very well tonight. Yeah, I think you just got to pay up tonight. And on a small slate, you just got to correlate as best you can. There's nobody that really sticks out to me as like just an unbelievable play outside of like Darlene. Maybe where's Dougie at? 5,900. Yeah, I like Dougie a little bit. Who do you like on the blue line?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you here. It does seem like a pay up option or a pay up slate here for the defenseman. I think there's a couple of cheaper guys that are kind of valuable. You know me, Brock. I love my sub 3K defenseman. Alexandre Carrier and Connor Timmins, I think, are both viable plays. 2,900 for Carrier, 3K for Connor Timmins. Great block volume from both of these guys. They are seeing some ownership here tonight, but ownership's fairly spread out around the defenseman here tonight. I think if you're looking for sub 3K guys, those guys are totally viable there. Simon Nemec grades out kind of between the both of them, but besides some solid assist numbers this season, he's really not doing a whole lot out there this year. So I think that's kind of the way that I look at this one here. Kind of pay up for these defensemen. And on that note about Zeev Buium, one thing that's really interesting too, and which kind of confounds me with his low ownership here tonight, he plays pretty much like all of his 5-on-5 time with that top line, Kaprizov and Boldy. So if I'm playing any Minnesota one tonight, which I will, I'm 100% having Zeev Buium in there with them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. 4K. Just I don't understand why he's not moving at all. I noticed him in shot block prowess. Played him last slate. he decided to get very skinny. Yeah. Connor Timmins, what's he been doing this year? Haven't really paid much attention. I know he's been playing a decent amount of ice time. He had 24 minutes back-to-back games. Obviously, getting a little bit healthier on the blue line is his minutes went down. But yes, 3, 4, 4, 6 blocks in a row, and then blocks one shot last game against the Habs. Again, with that being a fairly what looks to be maybe the highest event game on the slate, I think Timmins at 3K still has enough block equity there. John likes Owen Power. Where does he grade out tonight for us? He is right here. 19th best value option, $4,500. Yeah, I don't mind Owen Power tonight either. Pesci is solid. Yes, I agree. Let's get to the goalies. Small slates, we're always going to say, kind of just don't stack against your goalie. I think there's a lot of viable options tonight. I don't mind Nico Dawes as a bit of a chalk buster with Minnesota being popular. The problem with Nico Dawes is that he is just very inconsistent. Like, he'll put up just ridiculously good numbers in the AHL, then come to the NHL and shit the bed. But then sometimes he'll come back to the NHL and play great. I just never really know what to expect out of Nico Dawes. But I don't love paying up for him really, but I think it is on a 3-game slate a bit of a chalk busting spot that I don't mind as the lowest owned goalie on the slate, but the highest implied win percentage nonetheless. Dobish, I think, is probably my favorite goalie in the slate. Colton Ellis has really good AHL numbers. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know much about him outside of just his AHL stats. With the way the Red Wings are playing, with that game environment, I don't think I'm going to spend $7,800 to get there. I would rather play John Gibson, but even then, I don't know if I'm going to play either of those goalies that much. I think that's the game that I want to stack the most. So probably mostly Dobish. I'll probably sprinkle in some Wolf, maybe sprinkle in some Gustafsson as well. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Dawes is an okay play here tonight. You're paying up to get different in the goaltender. $8,200. He's the most expensive one on the slate. He had a couple of good games last season, for the Devils. But again, like when you look at his history, it's been fairly inconsistent, all things considering. First NHL started the season here. He's going to see some volume without a doubt from, that Minnesota 1 line. So I don't mind the idea of playing him. I think Dobish is probably my second favorite play, even though he is the highest owned goaltender on this slate. I'm going to be getting over the field on Dobish tonight. He's been great, man. 3 starts so far this season, a .939 save percentage, 7 goals saved above expected on the year. 1 start against the Flames in his career. He didn't get the win, but he only allowed 1 goal against and had a .958 save percentage. What's kind of interesting too, Dustin Wolf, I think, could be an option as well at $7,400. 3 games played against the Habs in his career. 3 wins, a shutout, 133 goals against average, .954 save percentage. So I don't mind the idea of sprinkling in a little bit of Wolf as well in lineups where I am feeding the Habs.
Let's get to our hat trick pick challenge. If you want to participate in tonight's hat trick pick challenge, all you got to do is comment your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube, not the live chat. Drop it in the main comment section. If your player scores a hat trick, we'll get you a $25 gift card to Nation Gear so you can pick up some DFO swag. They also, Nation Network has a lot of different websites. So if you want to pick up Oilers gear or Flames gear or Canucks gear, or if you're a Blue Jays fan, they've got some Blue Jays gear, specifically some Vladdy Guerrero stuff. So you don't have to pick up DFO swag. I would appreciate it, but you don't have to. So if you want to participate in today's hat trick challenge, drop your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. We gave away $25 already today. We're also going to give away $25 tomorrow because Jack Hughes scored a hat trick last night and nobody picked him. So if nobody picks the hat trick pick winner, we will just give away a hat trick pick or a $25 gift card to anybody that submitted a hat trick pick yesterday. So just giving away money here at the DFS Hockey Report. Zach, you've been picking first lately with no success, so I'm going to go first tonight. I'm going with Dylan Larkin. He has been as hot as they come. He is towards the top of the NHL. In goals, he has recorded a point in every single game this season. Brock's lock of the day on my DFO fantasy show during the mornings was Dylan Larkin over 2.5 shots on goal tonight against the Buffalo Sabres, who give up the most shot attempts and the most shots against in the NHL right now. So I like Larkin to get lots of pucks on net tonight. I like Dylan Larkin as my hat trick pick. Who do you got?
Let's go Matt Coronado.
Out of nowhere. Out of the blue. Yeah, you are a Calgary 2 truther. I definitely converted you there. Okay, that's going to do it for this edition of the DFS Hockey Report. Shout out to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing projected ownership for today's show. If you want to get $20 off your first month of RotoGrinders Premium, all you got to do is click the link in the description of the video on YouTube, promo code FACEOFF, and you get $20 off. You can take everything you learned at today's show, put it through the lineup optimizer, and build the perfect lineup. We also have a 20% off your first month of Action Network Premium. If you want to up your betting game, Action Network Premium is a good way to do that. 20% off, promo code FACEOFF, also in the link in the description of the video on YouTube. And one other thing is there too. The link to the DFO DFS Discord if you want to join that ever-growing community. We talk DFS in there all the time, help each other with picks and who you want to play and punt defensemen and goalies. And, there's more charts than just these ones in there. Everyone's sharing everything. So, yeah, we got lots of good stuff going on the DFO DFS Discord. That is going to do it for this Wednesday edition of the DFS Hockey Report. I'm Brock Seguin, and as always, joined by my friend Zach Laing. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Best of luck tonight. Hopefully you return with more money in your bankroll tomorrow than you had tonight. Until tomorrow, we will say cheers.
Cheers.